It is 1 year today since Wall Street journalist and reporter Evan Gershkovich was arrested in Russia, accused of espionage. The White House calls the charges ridiculous. A powerful, powerful message. The front page of today's Wall Street Journal has a large and striking blank space with a headline that says, "His story should be here." On Tuesday, a Moscow court extended Gershkovich's detention by 3 months, ordering to stay in prison until at least June 30th. His family telling our Andrea Mitchell that they are not giving up hope that he will be freed.
Evan is not here. It's been a year.
He spent all 4 seasons there. He spent his birthday and all the holidays.
We are keeping ourselves optimistic. That's the best way we can cope with it. No pessimism. Pessimism will kill all the hope.
Joining me now is NBC Chief International Correspondent Keir Simmons. So, Keir, 1 year has been stolen from Evan. What is the White House saying about his detention? And is there a path forward to free Evan?
Well, he's being held in pretrial detention. What that means in Russia is that he can effectively be held for almost indefinitely, frankly. He isn't on trial. Effectively, what they're saying is they're holding him while they investigate these espionage charges, which, his colleagues, the Wall Street Journal, the U.S. government, his loved ones all categorically deny. So these hearings that have been taking place, including this week, where our team in Moscow, NBC News team, tried to go and no media was allowed. Those hearings are simply about whether or not he will continue to be held. It is that challenging. And to answer the second part of your question, what the White House is saying, President Biden actually issued a statement just recently, just today, and he says, "We will continue working every day to secure his release. We will continue to denounce and impose costs for Russia's appalling attempts to use Americans as bargaining chips. To Evan, to Paul Whelan, to all Americans held hostage or wrongfully detained abroad, we are with you, and we will never stop working to bring you home." Of course, the latter part of that statement raises the question of whether there are negotiations to potentially swap Evan and others for perhaps an FSB, that's the former KGB officer who's being held in Germany, convicted of murder. We don't know how far that has developed. Certainly, President Putin himself has intimated that that's something that he might want, but it is very, very challenging, just that, because that person, for example, is, as I say, being held in Germany. It's not necessarily possible for the U.S. government to just tell the Germans what to do. So it is very difficult for his family and, of course, for Evan himself.
All right, Keir Simmons, thank you for that report. Let's talk about it now more. Joining me is the former Supreme Allied Commander of NATO, Admiral James Stavridis, and Ben Rhodes, the former Deputy National Security Advisor to President Obama. So, Ben, let's start with that, this idea of the possibility of a swap. President Biden mentioning in the statement that Americans are being used as bargaining chips. Keir mentioned that there is this Russian FSB officer being held in Germany. From your perch as a former national security advisor, does this seem likely? Is this something the United States would at least entertain?
I mean, I think it's something they'd entertain because I think it's the only way that you're going to see Evan coming home. Putin has escalated the use of these detentions to try to secure the release of people that are his associates, people who served in the FSB, or you'll recall with Brittany Griner that we had to release Victor Bout, who is a pretty significant arms dealer, to get her home. And so it's hard to see any other pathway. I don't think Putin is going to succumb to pressure. This is somebody who has escalated his crackdowns at home, escalated what he's been willing to do to people in prison. We saw Alexei Navalny die in a Russian prison. And look, it's a tough call for the United States because we don't accept the idea that Evan Gershkovich is a spy. And just engaging in a spy swap kind of validates the way in which Russia wants to treat him in their system. And frankly, because we've already done this swap with Brittany Griner, there's just not that many people left for the United States to exchange. And so you get into a very complicated three-way negotiation potentially with Germany that probably doesn't want to be seen to be releasing somebody who committed murder on their soil on behalf of an American citizen. So this is a very complicated problem for the administration and a tragic circumstance, obviously, for Evan's family.
Admiral, get us in the thinking of Vladimir Putin in arresting someone like Evan Gershkovich. Is this him flexing his muscles to illustrate his power? And does it also serve as a warning to other journalists that are trying to report fairly in the country?
I think it's both of those, but also it's simply obtaining bargaining chips. And by the way, to any American citizens listening out there, please don't go to Russia. It just is not going to turn out well. This is going to continue. And oh, by the way, the Iranians have done the same thing. The Chinese have used a form of this practiced on Canadians. As people around the world see the compassion, correctly so, that the United States has for its citizens, the light goes on for them that they can perhaps obtain the release of malevolent actors like, for example, Victor Bout, who is a true merchant of death. So it's the two things you mentioned, but it's also the straight up, let's grab an American and we can trade him or her for somebody who's languishing, quite correctly, in jail.
Ben, let's turn now to the situation in Ukraine. President Zelensky spoke to the House Speaker Mike Johnson yesterday about the situation on the battlefield, the critical need for U.S. aid, which is, of course, stalled in Congress right now. Part of this, I think, is interesting that we only know about this because Zelensky put out a statement about it. The speaker has yet to provide his side of the conversation yet. I mean, what does that tell us about how Zelensky's navigating the politics of Washington? And do you envision a scenario where Ukraine aid is actually brought to the House floor?
It seems like it's still alive. I don't think you'd have that conversation with the speaker if there wasn't still some hope. And the administration obviously keeps coming back at this. And the reality is, I'm sure what Zelensky is saying to him is that this is life and death. This is existential for Ukraine. This is the basic material that they need to resupply on a very long and difficult front line where they're fighting against the Russians. And the Russians have made some gains in recent months, in part because of the lack of small arms and ammunition and shells that Ukraine needs. And so I think from the Ukrainian standpoint, look, this is clearly the last chance they have to get anything out of the United States before the November election. And then beyond that, they're looking at an election that will really determine whether the United States remains a partner or not, because I don't think there's any dependability that Donald Trump is going to continue that assistance. So I'm sure the Ukrainians are just trying to do everything they can to get what's locked in Congress out, because there's no way that the United States or, frankly, Europe can make Ukraine whole without that supplemental package.
Yeah. And speaking of the supplemental, there's a component there for Israel. An admiral in the Middle East, Syria, is reporting that Israeli airstrikes near the northern city of Aleppo have killed over 40 people. These strikes seem to have escalated since October 7th. What does this signal to you?
The Israelis are clearly going after the supply chain that is sending weapons from Iran across Syria to Hezbollah in the north of Israel, in Lebanon. The Israelis and the Hezbollah terrorists have been exchanging a relatively low level, but still concerning number of missiles and strikes going back and forth. What the strike in Syria is designed to do appropriately is to interdict resupply headed to Hezbollah. One other point I want to make, picking up on Ben's point about the $60 billion and how critical it is for Ukraine. Worth noting, the Europeans have already offered $60 billion. So this is simply matching what our allies in Europe are putting up. I think if both Europe and the United States come through, it will keep Ukraine in good shape through the election. And as Ben says, we'll have to see how it goes after that. But it is a critical package. Now is the time.
It's a great point, especially because one of Donald Trump's argument is that Europe is not paying their fair share, which is obviously not the case. Ben, finally, back to Israel. The International Court of Justice at The Hague ordered Israel to stop obstructing humanitarian aid into Gaza because people are starving there. Is there a point where Israel's going to have to start listening to groups like this?
I think so. I think with the U.S. Allowing for that resolution to go through the Security Council, too, calling for an immediate ceasefire, I think that indicates Israel's last remaining diplomatic support in the international community is now no longer aligned with the idea that Israel, number one, is obstructing assistance from getting to Palestinians, and number two, is committed to going forward with this military operation in Rafah, the city that now has over 1 million people in it in dire circumstances in the Gaza Strip. Those two things, the Rafah operation and the obstruction of assistance, you just feel an overwhelming amount of international pressure. If Israel and Prime Minister Netanyahu really chooses to ignore that and go forward with the Rafah operation, continues to obstruct the aid from getting in, I think Israel is going to reach a state of international isolation that they just haven't faced before. And so this is a very critical couple of weeks and decision points for Netanyahu as he considers what the ICJ said, what the Security Council has done, and what President Biden is saying to him.
All right, gentlemen, we covered a lot. I appreciate it. James Stavridis and Ben Rhodes, we appreciate you both being here.
Hey, everyone. MSNBC has a new and improved app. You'll get real-time alerts and analysis, live blogs, in-depth essays, video highlights, and the best 2024 election coverage. Download the new MSNBC app. Here's how to do it. You tap on the App Store on your phone. You hit search on the bottom right corner. You type in MSNBC. You click on the MSNBC app. You click on Get or the cloud icon and enjoy it.